Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Star in Focus podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Oaks, and I have with us today the Scire brothers. Welcome. How are you two?
Hi, thank you for having us.
I know. We're so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm very, very happy to chat with you guys. Your reputation precedes you, but as I mentioned, is my favorite. I don't actually know you. So I'm really excited to get to know you along with the membership and our viewers. Um, we'll have to take turns, but why don't one of you get us started and tell us a little bit about how you guys got into the industry?
Sure. So I'm Michael. I'm the smarter of the twins. I am. So we got started in the industry because there was a great school at the time back in 1993, I think. 94, I think it was 90, I don't remember. Early 90s, we'll say. Early mid 90s. And I went for an orientation for, I didn't want, I had no interest in doing court reporting. My mother used to say, "Oh, you should do court reporting." I had no interest in that, but on the school curriculum, they listed captioning separately. And I actually saw that the captioning and court reporting and captioning was the most expensive program in the vocational school. So I actually said, well, if captioning is the most expensive tuition, that which it was not expensive at all. It was not expensive. But it was the most out of the programs. I go, that means they make the most money. I want to go for an orientation. So I went for the orientation and I asked Richard to drive me there. And um because we were like right out of high school, we're still in high school, and we shared a car at the time. So we were like 18 years old. So we go for the orientation, and it was really me with the guidance counselor and Richard sort of tagging along. And when we get to the classrooms, they were testing, so we couldn't go into the classrooms, but I see all these people on their machines. And I said, "Oh, this looks like court reporting," to the guidance counselor. And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's who does captioning." I'm like, "Well, I don't want to do court reporting." But then I was staring at their hands on their machines, and I thought, you know what? I obviously don't know anything about this profession. If I didn't know that a court reporter or a stenographer is who does captioning. So I turned to Richard, who's at the other end of the hallway, like reading the bulletin boards or whatever, and I said, "Richard, you have to come here and look at this. This is fascinating. All these people in this room, and their fingers are flying." And so Richard comes and looks, and with no interest at all. And I'm like, "Isn't this fascinating?" And I said, I think I'm going to do this, and I think you should do it with me. It'll be fun." And he says to me, "Michael, I will sign up for anything if you get me out of here in the next 5 minutes. I am so hungry." So we always joke. We've been doing this for 30 years, and we always joke that he made his career decision in a hangry state. He was so hangry. So what he did, I'm like, "All right, let's sign up and let's get out of here in the next 5 minutes so we can have lunch." And
It was the best hangry decision I've ever made in my whole life.
I'll say, yeah. So I want to know, why did your mom want you to get into court reporting? What was her background?
no, I don't know. She always said it to my sister, who's older than she, or my sister is 2 years older than we are. And my sister never had any interest in it. I think because maybe we had this school that was local. And, once we got into the program, unfortunately, they don't offer the program anymore. But when we got there, that they had so many students, and it was such a well-renowned school, even though it was a local public vocational school. There were people coming from, Georgia, and somebody came from somewhere on the other coast. I can't remember where. Um, but people were flying in all over the place just to go to that school. And it wasn't until we really got more advanced in the program that we realized, because they were offering real time, and they had the encoder to do captioning, live in the classroom, and they were just ahead of the technology. I didn't know that at the time because we were still learning on those old clamshell paper machines, that look like old cash registers. That's how we were learning. Not everybody was on real time or laptops back then. But as by the time we got to like the advanced class, everybody had their own laptop. Everybody was doing real time, and this was early mid 90s. So not it was really, the schools were transforming into this and embracing this technology. I mean, real time was around and our CAT softwares were around, but they weren't teaching it in the school necessarily in the way that our school was. So that
Sure.
was, and they had a fake a mock courtroom set up. So we did mock trials. We used to collaborate with the police academy and help them with their mock trials. We would be the court reporters. There, the paralegals classes. They would play the lawyers, where we'd have local lawyers that would be the lawyers for mock trials, and then the police officers from the police academy would come in and they would be all the witnesses. Like it was such a collaborative school with all these different fun things. I mean, it was just such a great experience.
It sounds like it. It really does. I mean, that's amazing. And did you guys take to it pretty well? Was it hard for you? Or, I mean, did you have any sort of competition?
I struggled with practically at every speed. So Richard's the rock star. He got through school a whole year before I did. I was just like, I don't get it. I talked you into it, and you're like kind of, you know,
Well, I had my struggles too. I had everybody gets their plateau speeds. Especially our school did every 10 word increments until you got to 120.
Okay.
So getting to 120 made it easier because you had, a 110 speed, but then a lot of people plateaued between 120 and 140 or 160 to 180. My biggest challenge was 160 to 180, but we had great teachers that said if you could get to 120, then there's no stopping you. You just have to be patient and keep trying extra hard. And well, as soon as you feel it, a teacher told Michael, didn't tell me because I was by then out of the class, down to the next level, and she was such a great teacher. Her name is Susan Tegman. I'll give her a shout out. But she said, if you can get to 120 and get through your 120s, then there's no reason why you can't get through 225. And
Yeah.
those were words to live by, to remember, to hear,
yeah,
to like tell yourself that when you're hitting those plateaus. And she would say, when your notes start falling apart, it means you're in between speeds and you're ready to jump to the next level. And she was spot on right every time.
yeah,
Oh, so I mean, it really makes a difference to have a teacher that can really give you the encouragement because it can be a struggle. It was really hard for me to get through school. I mean,
yeah.
can be challenging for sure.
And our instructors, we had three instructors at the time. Because they had like the slow speeds, the intermediate, and then they had the advanced class. They had the teachers would actually pull people aside to say, I don't think this is for you, if they thought that you weren't like committed enough. And I
Okay.
thought, because Richard and I were very young, I mean, we were, still teenagers, 19, 18, 19 years old when we were started the program. So I honestly was kept thinking they're going to come up to me at some point and say, what are you doing? Because I didn't take to it. The theory, I mean, I learned the theory pretty quickly, but I just struggled at every speed. And of course, we worked full time and we were in school full time. So there was no practicing going on once we were at home. And that's a big regret of mine. I wish I would I'd go back and tell my younger self to make that time to practice more on the machine. I was just tired. It was like, working 40-hour weeks, being in school for 30 something hours. It was just a lot. So that's not an excuse, but I just would definitely do things differently. But they never pulled me aside to say, this isn't for you. They instead encouraged me along the way, and especially Susan. She was like my biggest fan, and I'll never forget. There were some days because we had these very difficult medical dictation courses that you had to write on the machine, then you had to read back in a private room with the instructor for like 5 minutes at 180 words a minute, and it was very intimidating. And if you didn't pass it, you had to take the class again. You had to take the test again. It was just very, very. School was a lot tough.
Yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily needed to be as tough as we had it, but it was tough. But she was very encouraging, and I remember because we had to do a read back at 140 also for the lower speeds in the medical class, and my paper got stuck in the machine, and and it was a paper machine, so I
Right.
it was the 8000 LX just came out. So I had that, but I wasn't used to reading from that little screen.
Oh, okay.
So I got halfway through it, but I was making too many mistakes reading from that thing. And I couldn't read from my paper. I was always good at reading from my paper, but I couldn't do it. So I had to sit through the 140 class again, which was like 3 months or whatever. But then because of my speed was at 180, 160, I think it was at the time, I was in the 180 class, and so I had to sit through both classes. Oh, it was just like I felt like it was torture at the time. But when I finally got to that point where I have to read my notes again, I did it flawlessly. I mean, I did not make one mistake. And I was
Wait,
reading
Michael, let me just
paper.
interrupt for a second. That was part of the final exam, is that you had to read back a 5-minute medical terminology
Oh my God, in medical too. It's
medical.
so
Yeah, it was medical.
brutal.
This is a
It was a
medical
medical
test.
class. Yeah.
So you had to do it at 140, you had to do it at 180. And so like Michael's paper jamming up didn't give him a reprieve or to do it again. It just meant he had to sit through the entire class all over again, which was months and months long.
Ugh.
And now he was sitting in both of them. And the teacher had no mercy on us. I mean, she
Oh
was like,
yeah,
no.
they made it medical. That's
Oh my
rude.
God.
And she was like, no, no, sorry, you can't, you don't get a second try with a different test just because that happened with your paper. Well, with the timing, you don't have the opportunity to say, hey, stop everybody from talking. And so Michael was really mad at the time, but get to the finale there because it's the reason why you ultimately have no regrets.
So the day comes where I go in that room with her again, and now I'm reading this 140, and you did get to practice. She would give you like three different tests ahead of time so that you could get familiar with the terminology. So that was, I think, pretty cool about that part of the final exam. But she but you didn't know which test she was going to give you, so you had to prepare for taking all of them. So now she gives the test, and I read back, and I'm like hovering over the machine reading my paper notes. And when I looked up, and I get emotional every time I think about this, I looked up, and she had tears running down her face, and
Oh,
she got up, and she was very quiet. She wasn't like very talkative or sociable, very much of an introvert. Got up and hugged me and said, Michael, of all the students I've ever had, you're the one I'm the most proud of. And I was not expecting that. I get teary-eyed every time I think about that. I was not expecting that, but I worked my butt off for that. But
yeah,
it taught me that that's how you have to handle you're going in for trial next week. And,
yeah.
where somebody's asking for real time, you have to prepare for it. You can't just, walk in and say, well, I'll hope for the best.
Yes, definitely.
So,
And I think that's a very, they do a lot of advertisements now about, I'm sure you've seen the hamburgers, the different hamburgers with the prep,
yeah.
Mm.
right? The preparation
Right.
videos or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and it really does. It makes a big difference. As a professional, I don't, as a student, I didn't learn to do any sort of background like check or whatever. And so as a professional, one of my colleagues was saying like, oh yeah, when I was looking them up on LinkedIn or whatever, and I was like, oh my gosh, you did that? She's like, yes, like part of the prep, I have to know what did
Yeah.
they rattle off there? They're and I was just like, wow, that blows my mind, but it's very, very useful, like just to get all of
Yeah.
that info.
And I
Especially
think,
for real time, whenever I have a real time job, I just Google the case and you end up finding so much stuff. But certainly we always tell people when we speak a lot to tell them, if you're having a trial and 5 counties away in your state, get on their county clerk website and pull up the case. It's always public record. If it's not, it'll tell you you can't get there. But you can almost always find all the information you need, all the witness lists, because we always ask the attorneys for it, but you don't always get it. But even so, you don't want just the witnesses they're going to call to the stand. You want every witness that they could call to the stand. Every name
Right.
that could be mentioned. So you
Yes.
find so
yeah.
much information from going to the clerk's website, but just Googling it, and the higher profile the case is, really the easier it is going to be to report. Especially if you're doing real time and you're thinking, oh, I don't know that I'm good enough for this, and this is a high profile case. That's actually good news because you could Google it and you can find everything you need to know about that case, and you'll know it backwards and forwards in one afternoon or evening to do your job dictionary and go in there like a rock star.
Yes, I think that is absolutely sound advice. It's really valuable. And so what did we do before? I mean, not we. I haven't been in the industry long enough to have a before Google, but I can't
Right.
imagine having to go to the library or whatever other means, that you would have to do to generate that information.
You'd like
Right, like, so,
you
right.
would go to if it was a court proceeding, you'd go to the clerk or you'd go to the clerk's office, ask for the court file, and start flipping through pages of stuff that you don't even know what you're looking for. But
Right.
you're just looking at it just to get familiar with the case. But we used to do that. Go there and stand there at their desk because you can't go anywhere with the file and just start looking through stuff and thinking, I don't even know what I'm reading here.
Right.
Hope for
I
the best.
mean,
Now we weren't doing real time back when we were flipping through pages of that. By the time we were doing real time, we were official court reporters, and we had access to that anyway, electronically or otherwise, that we could just email a clerk or call them if we couldn't gain access to it online. But I can't remember a time we couldn't access it online as official court.
but when we were in school, they were teaching us still go to the law library. How do you look up case law? How do you go to the clerk's office and ask for the court file? We were right in that. I mean, we started school before Windows 95. Okay, so that's how old we are. But then now we're working and it's after Windows 95 and the internet more, and there's things that are so
Yeah.
much easier. Like I can't even imagine doing this job. I kudos to our predecessors who you know dictated from the paper notes and then typed on a typewriter, and I
Yeah.
I
Or
can't even imagine.
did appeal transcripts for original and two copies with carbon paper. I mean, on a typewriter.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine. That's just like you
I,
said, kudos to the predecessors for sure. Because we have it so, I mean, relatively speaking,
Yeah.
easy nowadays. Um, but so are you still officials or do you guys freelance now?
Yeah, no, no, we're free. We both were officials for Richard for 18 years, me for 19 years.
Okay.
Um, we first started our careers off freelancing with a firm in Charlotte County, Florida, that had the court contract. So we were doing criminal, civil, family law, but mostly the court contract covered the criminal and the family Department of Children and Family cases. And we did that. It was in the next county over, so it's like an hour away, but it gave us we got the experience because I ultimately wanted to be an official court reporter in our hometown, but in our judicial circuit, which is Sarasota and Manatee counties, they had employees and you would, they'd give you an office, you work for the same judges, you do all the criminal felony trials, and that's ultimately what I wanted to do. So after I put in a couple of years in the other county, then I felt comfortable enough to apply for the position here in Sarasota and I got the job. And then 6 months later, there was all these openings that opened up. So I called Richard right away and said, and my other colleagues in the next county, and said, you all need to get over here because they just increased the salaries. At the time, felt like a lot. It's not a great salary now, but at the time it felt great.
Sure.
And like, you need to get over here. There's great benefits. They provide all your equipment, your laptop, steno machine, the whole thing. And we had beautiful offices. I'm like, this is great. So then ended up getting promoted to a supervisor. So I was Richard's sort of boss for many of those years.
I'd
Um,
love to hear how that panned out.
it actually worked out great. Like we worked so well together. I could rely on him for anything. We
Oh,
have so
that's
many funny stories where we switched places, and yep, we still do that. Or covered for each other, or I read back his notes once. Like, so, I mean, to the jury, we were
we've
such a great team.
we've always had a good balance anyway. That like I respected his authority as my supervisor, and then in the interim of that, whatever year it was that I became president of the Florida Court Reporters Association, it was like I had my own leadership that I never felt like I was, you know, inferior or anything. When Michael wanted to, he was my boss. So when my supervisor, if he wanted something done, and I was his go-to person. When everybody else was complaining that they didn't want to go to court for some last minute trial that popped up or whatever, Michael knew he could come to me and I would drop everything and do it. Because,
yeah, that's
you
great.
know,
But
Yeah.
now we're in the freelance world. We're part of, you can see Richard's screen. It says Diamond Court Reporting. So
Yes.
we're part of the Diamond Court Reporting team. There's a few Diamond Court Reportings. We're part of the Naples Court Reporting team, but in Sarasota, we're Diamond Court Reporting.
Okay.
So we're part of that group, and it's a great group. We have a great team of people. I can't say enough nice things about our group that we work with. And I'm loving this new, I mean, after doing this for 28, 29 years, and now we're embarking on new things. Like, I'm not used to doing medical malpractice. So it's been, because we didn't do that in criminal court. We did other medical stuff and medical examiner and, DNA. I could write that, with one hand. No I'm kidding. Not one hand. But but so it was kind of like, oh, I have to learn something new after all these years, but it's been fun. It's been challenging, but it's been fun.
Well, I was going to say, but like everything we do always makes a full circle. So we've all been doing this for almost 30 years. The the cases that we did in the 90s that were death penalty cases under a contract system in Charlotte County, then we become officials. We've been on court TV more times than we can count. I was on America's Most Wanted.
Okay, hold the phone, circle back. How did that happen?
Somebody from the show was caught in Sarasota and he had to appear in front of a judge. And I was the court reporter. I walked into the courtroom. I'm like, through the back hallways because we were employees. And I'm like, what are all the cameras here for? And the bailiff said, oh, this is the America's Most Wanted case. The defendant was captured after last Sunday's show. So I was the court reporter. I'm like, oh, how funny. I'm like, so I'm gonna get to tell all my friends and family that I was on America's Most Wanted and be happy about it.
Yes. That's crazy and kind of cool. Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
the full moment though is like we're in Florida and with all the death penalty cases we've done, it takes a long time for Florida to actually put anybody to death in a death penalty case. So any death penalty case we've done, nobody had ever been put to death in almost 30 years. And about 3 weeks ago, the first person of the case that I worked on was put to death. And I thought I'd seen it all. I thought like nothing phases me anymore. And that kind of hit me hard, not because he didn't deserve it, but because I think about how he's somebody's, son, brother, cousin, friend. I think about the victims and their families and what they've had to go through. Because what a lot of people don't know, at least in Florida, I'm going to guess it's everywhere, that just because the sentence has been given doesn't mean that's the end of it. There, for Florida anyway, every 90 days until that defendant is put to death, there is a status conference and the family gets notified. So imagine that happening for 30 years. Like when did they get their closure? So those are the things that I was thinking about when I was now seeing it on the news.
Yeah.
But then the full circle moment too is right around that time when I was working on that case, Michael was interning and interned with me on that same case. And it's like, it's just kind of a surreal moment that like the things you think you can't tolerate or that you can't listen to, or that you're not good enough yet when you're coming right out of school, or you're interning or whatever. And then now here we are almost 30 years later and
Yeah.
listening to it. Or Michael just did a hearing for another death penalty case during that same time where I was the court reporter for the whole trial in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so why the shift then from official? Because it sounds like you kind of liked it and thrived. You were there for almost 20 years. What was the reasoning for changing?
It was COVID actually.
Oh,
We were ready to retire there. A friend of ours who is also past president of the Florida Court Reporters Association was a federal reporter for about 4 years, wanted to go back to the freelance world, but wanted to start her own business and did. And so she was a few years into it when COVID happened. And a year before COVID, she had said, I want to partner up with some like good reporters. We all work well together. We all served on the board for the Florida Court Reporters Association. She and I at this point, I was incoming president, I think at that point. She's the past president. We knew Michael was likely on his way to presidency. She's like, I think we would be a great partnership. And we said, let's think about it because we think we're going to retire here. This was in 2019. So now a year later, COVID happens. And the courthouse was closed for like a week and a half at this point. And first it's like, well, woohoo, we get paid to do nothing because the courthouse is closed and we only do court. So we had nothing to do. Our transcripts were caught up. And a week and a half in, I'm like, I don't want to get paid to do nothing. And then I was seeing how Zoom and being remote was a tool that we get to be among the only professions that could still work when so many people couldn't work. Like we were still getting paid as officials, so we could have just stayed there and said, all right, I'll just, watch the soap operas every day and eat junk food. And we did for a week and a half. So, and then after that, I'm like, you know what? Let's be part of the solution to have court reporters accessible and to be part of cases that can still be heard. Let's be part of the solution. And of course, make more money. That was good too. And
Yeah.
it was a tough decision because we really loved being officials. When word got out that I was leaving first, because Michael and I lived together, we're like, let's one of us leave and then we'll see how successful we could be. And then the other one will leave. And we didn't tell anybody. So I don't know who overheard us, but three judges called me on a weekend to find out if the rumors were true and begged me to stay and what could they do to get me to stay. And I'll be forever humbled by that. They're friends of ours now. They're like just lovely people. But it was, it's like, what, it's just time for somebody else to learn from being an official, and hopefully they will. I know those positions are tough to fill. The salaries in Florida anyway aren't great, but it was also like I felt like I learned as much as I could possibly learn. There's always room for growth, and I felt like I learned whatever I needed to learn there, and it was time to learn something else.
Right. I mean, that makes sense to me, definitely. And do you feel like you like freelancing better now?
I certainly love it better than I did when I first became a court reporter. I didn't love it. I didn't love not seeing the same people every day. You didn't get to know anybody because by the time you saw them again, it was months later. This was the 90s. Everybody was in person. There was no such thing as being remote. We're
Right.
now, because like remote, I feel like brings people together. I love being in person and I love being remote. And at least when you're remote, it keeps you connected to your clients that like while we're part of Diamond Court Reporting of all of Southwest Florida now, we could be remote with attorneys that are 2 hours away and they don't remember that we live in Sarasota, but they do remember they see us all the time. So it's a great way to connect to your clients and stay relevant so that they don't find somebody else. And because what court reporting programs don't teach you is how to market, how to establish yourself, how to rapport build. Those are how to be a salesperson. We put ourselves through school doing retail. So retail is everything. I think everybody should work retail at some point, because when you're selling merchandise, you learn how to sell yourself in marketing. And that was the tip I got from my experience from our fundraisers and conventions. We always go back to the few years we did retail, and it's no different than when you're selling yourself. It's customer service, and it's something that court reporting programs unfortunately don't teach or teach enough of.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Michael? Do you feel the same?
Oh yeah, totally. When I thought I would be sad when I was leaving the courthouse for the last time. They wanted to the court administration wanted to have a big party for me, and I didn't want any of that. But I did say I didn't. I just was over the administration. No disrespect to them. I just didn't really want to be there. I didn't want to have the obligatory cake and stand around and all that. I didn't want that. So, but I told so Richard and the two other friends of ours said, "What if we do a happy hour and we'll just off-site whoever wants to come?" And it was so I thought I would. I wondered if I would be sad walking out of that courthouse after 19 years for the last time. Not that it's the last time. I do other stuff there, but as an employee, and I actually was practically skipping out of there. I was so happy. And I couldn't wait to start this next venture. And I walked right out of the courthouse. I drive down the street, and everybody was already there. There were a bunch of the judges showed up. There was a bunch of attorneys and clerks and other court reporters. And we walked into this big party, and it was so much stinking fun. And then it was like, oh, and then I actually went on a vacation for a week. And then when I came back, I hit the ground running, and I've been loving it ever since. Every day is different. Some
Yes.
weeks feel like some weeks feel, feels like you're working all the time, but then other weeks go by and it's like, all right, I feel like I didn't do anything today. But then all of a sudden I get my check and it's like, oh, holy cow,
Yeah.
I work
Yeah.
this
These are,
month.
yeah.
But years ago, like when I didn't love freelancing, when I started off, I read an article in the Journal of Court Reporting that it was something about finding your niche. So I don't, maybe that's what the title was. I don't remember, but I remember reading the article and thought, okay, I'm not loving court reporting, but it's because I'm doing it wrong. I didn't find a way to do it that I was feeling fulfilled. And that's when I went to more the felony aspect, the criminal aspect, becoming an official, and I loved it. And then I wrote an article for the JCR to talk about that because I think that's important. I think so many people you come out of school hoping you're going to know everything, and you don't know everything.
No.
You basically don't know anything but the machine. No matter how,
Right.
no matter
Yeah,
how good of a job the school and our instructors teach us, we
Yeah.
can only retain so much, and we're retaining things like speed and accuracy on the machine. We're not retaining all the other stuff that they're trying to teach us.
Right. Right.
Outside of certain academics, of course. But so yeah, then it was years later. I'm like, when I was ready to leave an official position, I'm like, I need to write a follow-up, and I keep saying I'm going to do it. But as when I was president of FCRA, I was a little busy. But
Yeah.
but to write it again because I think what you enjoy, what you feel fulfilled by, what your niche is going to change. I don't think you
Yeah.
stay the same, and that certainly happened for me too. But it doesn't mean you don't like the profession anymore, or it doesn't mean you're ready to call it quits. I
Right.
We keep finding different aspects of the profession. We've got into cart. I'm going to be doing a cart. I was doing cart for our local chapter for the Hearing Loss Association. Um, they've sadly, because of COVID, had to disband. But people that are in the deaf community that want to go to jury duty, I'm going to be doing that in a couple weeks. Like
That's so cool.
we're their ears, and that's another whole aspect of what we get to do in our profession, or our city does anything with that for ADA compliance for people that can't hear.
Yeah.
Most deaf people that are latent deaf they don't know sign language. So they call me and I get to go there and be the card captioner. And I'm happy to do it. It's so fulfilling, and
Yeah.
you walk out every day of every job doing all those different aspects and trying to learn every aspect of our career, walking out feeling like the rock star that we are.
Yeah. And I'll say my favorite thing about like the whole cart captioning is there's no transcript production, right?
I,
You're like, yes, I'm actually done for the day. This is it. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think I realized coming out of school how much time is actually on production. You think
I,
when I was in school, I just thought, okay, this is it. You're done. You might have to, you got the title page and the appearances, and then that's it. It's like I
yeah.
was a deer in headlights for sure.
I,
And
yeah,
that too, like we were officials, we were forced to do real time. And I say forced because like we tried to avoid it and make like hopefully that they wouldn't really call us on it, but they did, and we had to do real time without being like, and we graduated school not doing real time like they do today in schools. So we were like starting from scratch. And plus Michael and I were on Eclipse, and the courthouse was on Case Catalyst. So now we're like forced to do real time and on a new software that
Oh, wow.
back then the dictionaries didn't translate over as well as they do today. So it was like starting over from scratch.
Yeah.
And then funny story, that my first day in court, the our supervisor, wonderful woman that we still call her mom to this day, even though she's retired and we don't work together anymore. But she was our office mom. But so Mary Baber is her name. Mom went to the judge to say, Richard's our new court reporter. I know he looks a lot like Michael, but it's his twin brother, and he's going to do real time, but it's going to be kind of a mess because he's on a different software. And Judge Hayworth was like, that's fine. I totally get it. Judge Hayworth, in the meantime, years prior, took a steno course so that he could learn to read the steno outlines through the untranslates of the real-time screen. I didn't even know that was an option, but he learned that.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I'm in there and it's like pleas and sentencing. So it's fast and furious all day long. I don't know who any of the players are. So I did what we all learned in school. Like the first prosecutor was Darby, so she's Dar Dar. The next one was Scanlon, so I hit scan for her name. At least
Yeah.
I'll see the double stroke. Well,
Yeah.
Case Catalyst started scanning for things. Every time I hit scan, I'm like, what is it?
Oh
And I'm
no.
hitting escape, I'm hitting keys, just to get it to stop. So finally I said, I'll just throw the asterisk in there. Well, then it translated skank for the rest of the And the judge was like, the judge laughed. He said, Richard, it's okay. You don't have to do real time until you're ready. It was such a mess. And that attorney has since become a good friend of ours. And she knows I tell this story all the time. So I'm not hurting her feelings because she thinks it's funny too.
Oh, I love the skank. That's great. I had to take things out of my dictionary just for that reason. Like you don't think about it, you know?
Right.
I
Yeah.
misstroked switch and I caught the whole B instead of just the W, and that was already in my dictionary as a brief
Oh
for
my
son of a
God.
bitch. Why there? It did not go over well. I was just,
Oh my God.
wow, yeah. So lots of things you learn through experience, right?
No. And
Yeah.
while I appreciate our software and how it, no matter what software on, it has so many great mechanisms to correct some of your writing, but some things, if you don't change your settings, it'll automatically put things in there. So like for us, like Pines of Sarasota kept coming up in one trial. Well, the brief it function or on Case Catalyst on a previous trial kept turning pines into penis. So it kept coming up as penis of Sarasota.
What about you, Michael? Do you have any horrible untranslate or
Oh
mistranslate?
gosh, I could probably write a book on it. But
It's
luckily I always when I'm good about staring at my screen so that because like I had there was some it was a swear word. I can't remember what the word was. Not that anyway, it kept coming up and I was in a trial back when I was in doing the criminal felony stuff and um I didn't notice it right away because they were talking so fast and sometimes if they're talking too fast I don't want to look at my screen because I'm trying to it makes me nervous.
yeah.
Well, when I finally looked at it, it was at the judge sometimes would call them up to the bench and she would read from the screen.
Oh no.
And luckily now while she rather than having the court reporter read back, she's reading quietly to the attorneys what they said. And I always quickly would pull up what she's reading so I could see it and I could see the glaring word. I forgot what the word was, but it was, and I'm like, please don't say it. And luckily she stopped right before that word and she said, oh, this didn't translate very well, but I get the gist. It's this, it's this, and I was like, oh, thank gosh. So
Yeah.
afterwards, like at the recess, I said, thank you for not reading, thank you for not humiliating. And she goes, no, I totally get. She goes, Michael, I've been doing this now for so many years, like reading the real time screen. I totally get it. Like she was very cool about it. So I was like, oh, phew, good. I was like,
It makes so much of a difference when your judge is on your side, for sure.
But
yeah,
it's also important though for the people that are going to be listening to this is like if especially if you're getting to real time, so many people get scared of it. Like you're better than you think you are. Certainly do your homework and get prepared, but also educate your clients that are your judges that are going to ask for it. Like we have one firm that every time they have a new associate, they ask me to school them and we do a training session. We don't charge them for it, but we do it doesn't take long to do, but so that they understand what an untranslate is, what a mistranslate is, what just because there's a mistake that popped up, d- know that that's not the final transcript, that we write notes to ourselves in the transcript. I
Yes.
try to keep those hidden, but not every court reporter does. Sometimes they'll just write it into their notes. And to teach them what all that is, because like Michael said, they are reading it for something different than we are. But court reporters, stenographers should not be saying, "Oh, I can't do it," when you actually can. And
Yeah.
more of us are equipped to than we realize.
Yes. I would agree. We definitely are harder on ourselves, right? And it's everything. It's not just professionally, but it carries over to the
Right. Anything
professional.
really anything in life. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So,
Yes.
okay, so I have had you here now for a while, and I feel like we could just chat forever. You're so delightful, gentlemen. But I do want to talk a little bit about our upcoming Unity Summit and your involvement and sort of where things are headed, especially since you've been around for a minute. Like you said, you were training on paper. Now we've got, all kinds of digital in our lives. How are you feeling about the upcoming Unity Summit? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm excited to have this opportunity. It was very nice that I was even asked, or that we were the Florida Court Reporters Association was asked to participate. So thank you for that. Um, I'm going to be chatting with the Georgia president. I think it was supposed to be this week, maybe next week. But I'm excited to get the different perspectives from people. I know there's parts of uh, where we could be headed or might be headed, or what's available out there that could be controversial. But I think it's important that everybody just kind of listens and see, just to sort of get the lay of the land. And I think, in many ways we can all work together for the same common goal. Um,
And ultimately, not knowledge is power for all of us, not just one side. Knowledge is power, and we all tend to, react on fear about what we think we don't want or what we're afraid is coming down the pike. And like, like Michael said, when we all have a common goal and we're all coming together, I mean, it says it in your title, Unity Summit. The
Yeah,
word unity is in there.
yeah,
The,
definitely.
the summit says it all. And so we are excited to be representing FCRA and have a seat at the table and not just talk, but to learn and listen from the others as well.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm excited for too, is just being a place for people to come together, right? Because we don't need more divisiveness. We really just need to kind of take a look and see what's really going on. Not what makes you different, but what makes you like me. How are we trying to achieve the same thing? What are the processes you use and how can I learn from that, right? I think that that's really what we need. And we're just trying to highlight those points and bring a little bit of light to maybe like you said, the controversy, the darkness that has kind of cast a shadow among some of the folks in our profession. And
right.
I go ahead.
Yeah, we do that. We kind of almost do that with even our own industry. You can go to a big convention and we're all in the same, we're all stenographers or voice writers, or, in Florida, we have voice writers as our members too. So we could all go to a big state convention or national convention, and then we all are happy to be there, but then we tend to want to eat our own afterwards when we're all kind of nasty. Well, that's why I don't like to get on social media anymore. Just some of the groups are just so negative. But we went to, a couple of years ago, Richard and I spoke at a convention that included lawyers, paralegals, administrators. I wish I could remember which state it was, but it was very interesting, because that's what this reminds me of. It's everybody that doesn't do the same thing, but it was bringing all these different legal professionals together,
Yeah.
and they just sort of, everybody kind of had an opportunity to, interact with each other, to find out what do you do in the court system or for the legal system that I don't do. And so it was kind of genius in a way, because there were judges that don't work with court reporters, or especially the younger judges that didn't really know what we do, or there were some lawyers that didn't, or even the paralegals that didn't even know what real time was. So next thing have these opportunities throughout this weekend where you got to find out. Like, maybe I think I know what a paralegal does, but I was learning things that they do that I didn't know after all these years. And then there was lawyers from different types of law. It was fascinating. So it reminds me kind of what we're going to be looking forward to with the Unity Summit, because it's bringing people from who have something in common, but do different things too.
Yeah,
So
definitely. What about you, Richard?
So yeah, I always refer to them. I know Oprah always called them aha moments, but long before she said that, I would always call them how dare I moments, because every time I would think I knew something about something, or I was emphatic about something, my opinion mattered when I didn't have the knowledge to base it on. And then I learned differently. I thought, oh, how dare I? How dare I even voice that opinion when I really had no idea what I was speaking about. Um,
Sure.
so, so back to, I look forward to going there to, of course, speak because, as you know by now, we love to talk. But I look forward to hearing from everybody else, every part of the profession, different professions, what they do, what we can learn from them, what they can learn from us, and
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 if it's one thing we should learn from being court reporters is listening is just as important as talking. So,
Yeah.
we sit in court and sometimes the attorneys or the witnesses or they're so busy talking, but nobody's taking the time to stop to listen. So I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's a lot of talk happening right now, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
we're happy to be a safe place for people to come together and just trailblaze this idea that some things matter and some things don't, right? Like you got to pick your battles, and this is one of the things where we've really got to come together so that we can be a stronger voice. And it's really meaningful to have you and other industry leaders in the ring with us, so to speak. I don't think I like in the ring because that's a little bit kind of violent. What's the good, in the pod, in the room with us, I guess.
I make a terrible boxer. I don't think I do that.
Yeah,
I'm good
yeah,
at this, not this.
right. Have you ever tried any of the other methods?
No, I know I've learned a little bit from one of the voice writers who's a member of the Florida Court Reporters Association. So I got to, pick her brain a little bit when I first met her. And then we did do a little orientation with one of the software companies just to
Okay.
see what that was about. It was one of the conventions a couple of years ago or whatever, just to see, how that works. But
Yeah.
But
so I,
even
I
just that little sitting in, you realize, okay, you know what, there is a place for all of us. While we all want to think that, oh, our methodology is the best, and I still do think that ours is the best. But I think that because I didn't get to hear from anybody yet. I didn't get to hear, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to hearing. I'm still going to walk out of there thinking that I'm the best that I could be, and that's what we should all be doing. We should all be leaving a summit, a convention, no matter what your methodology is, walking out of there with your held high because you learned something, you walked away with something, and you feel like you're going to go out and be the best that you can be.
Absolutely. And I feel like for those of us that are, you were going to say something, Michael, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, just I was gonna just agree with Richard, but like, even if it doesn't change your opinion, at least you gave it the opportunity to learn about it and listen to it. There are going to be people in this industry that's not going to change their minds about anything. I might be one of them. I don't know, but I know that there are reporters that I know one in particular that was a stenographer and then couldn't be a stenographer anymore, so she went to voice writing, and
Yeah.
she's a rock star. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, you know what? If I was in that boat and something happened to me, this is all I know how to do. Now, I would have to go to learn something else within our industry, but there's nothing else I'm going to want to do because this is what I'm good at, so
Right.
I just think it's important to just always keep your mind open and
Yeah.
and learn.
Have some compassion, some empathy, curiosity, all of those things, right? Like I think those are very important. And I think what's really fun about these conventions, these conferences, is that as freelancers, we're kind of isolated. I work primarily from home. I mean, I would say probably 30% in person nowadays, but it's a very lonely profession in that regard. I mean,
Right.
if you're not in the officialship, so I really thrive on the togetherness of it. And so even if I didn't learn anything, which I will, there's always great content, software training, all of those things. Just the bonds that you make, the relationships that you form, I feel like are worth it
Oh,
all on its own.
absolutely. That's why Richard and I go to all the NCRA conventions, the FCRA conventions every year for like the last, I don't even know, 15, 20 years. We just love them because everything you just said, it's like you're getting together with your old friends and of course you learn a lot in the seminars.
Yeah,
Because we've been so active with the Florida Court Reporters Association. It's not often I get to sit in a seminar because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes when we
right.
were part of the convention committees and chairing the convention and then doing board service. You know, there are times where it's like, oh, I get to sit down and actually listen to a seminar and I'm not even in there for 10 minutes and my phone's lighting up. You know, "Oh, we need you over here. We need you over there. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna at least, do all the social stuff. No one's gonna bother me during the social.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Well, and
Yeah,
we
but
had when the National Court Reporters Association was in Orlando, we were Diamond Court Reporting had a table. We were both still on the Florida Court Reporters Association board, and we were also on the committee for the National Court Reporters Foundation. So we had three tables to man and still
oh,
try to
wow.
do other convention stuff. And still, even if you don't have time to sit in seminars, you end up walking away from any convention, and I'm sure this summit will be the same way. Of while you learn a lot in the seminars, you also learn a lot from the people you meet along the way.
Yes,
And
definitely.
and that's what I think and everybody goes to conventions and summits for their own purpose or what they think they want to get out of it or what they know they want to get out of it. For me, I always want to get out of it, not out of it, but what I want to get from it is the people that I meet along the way and hearing their stories and what they love about it and what they don't love about it. Because you ultimately learn about what you can do better for yourself, for your industry, your profession. And I already said it a couple of times, but knowledge is power on every level. And why it's so important that we go to those conventions and why we're so looking forward to going to your summit and to talking people that in it may be parts of the industry we know nothing about. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. We're so happy to have you join us and be a part of this sort of you know, venture of inclusivity. And yeah, I think we've got nowhere to go but up, especially with everybody I speak to on a one-on-one basis has really kind, positive things to say. I don't know why there's like a saying, and I'm not going to get it right, but it's like the individual is sane, but the masses are not, like, so I don't know why it works that way, but, having those individual relationships and making those connections, it's just really rewarding and really valuable. And we're just so, so grateful for your input and all that you've done for the profession in the last 30 years. My goodness. Are there any ideas of retirement or are you just full blazing, still
Oh,
going?
we're right now. I mean, I used to say when I was at the courthouse, I wanted to retire when I turned 58. We just turned 50. But I will say I could see myself being, working in this freelance capacity. I no longer have that because when we were at the courthouse, you're there 8 to 5 every day and, you
Yeah.
know, we didn't realize how much we were being abused, I'm going to say, until you leave.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't wait to retire. But now that we've left the courthouse and I'm just loving this, yeah, I love everything about being a stenographer and traveling everywhere and we're doing trials and depositions and then certain proceedings that I never did before. I mean, and after all these years, it's been fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah. I love that we don't look toward retirement like, oh, I can't wait to retire at 50. I think you said 58. I thought it was 57. That we were like counting the days. Only because like when you have so many years in as a government employee, then you can retire. So that was like the year we can retire. But the salaries weren't getting any better. So it's like, okay, well, we can retire, but we still have to do something else then. And so I'm glad we left when we did because I, I feel like we have a different vibrance than we would have if we were going into it just because we were retiring. Like we left
Yeah.
our official positions, and anybody who wants to be an official, go for it. It is really, I really enjoyed the work. I really enjoyed the working with the judges and the attorneys. But we left there with like a new rejuvenation that, I don't look at retirement is so far away. I don't want to look at retirement. I love what I do.
Yeah.
Every single day is an adventure. I love it.
Yeah. And the flexibility, right? Like I constantly think just honestly because of the benefits, the pension, the healthcare, all of those things. I'm like, should I go into officialship, and just let somebody handle those big, things, the
Right.
financial aspects of it. But then it's like, no, I mean, the flexibility of where you can be. I mean, you could go on vacation and still work, right? Like if you wanted
Right.
Yep.
to. So I do.
And I'm taking my stuff with me.
Have you? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to think about it, right? You don't have to ask anybody for time off. And yeah, there's just, I mean, it's just so many wonderful perks about being a freelancer. It's really rewarding.
And the remote work has given us so many opportunities to work anywhere. We could go anywhere. And the notary laws in Florida are different than everywhere else. Like we were I think I was president when this happened. That at first it was temporary because of COVID, and then it became law that we can swear people in if they're out of state with their permission. As long as we're in Florida, we can swear them in no matter where they live. While other states are saying, oh no, you can't swear them in if you're not in our state. We actually can in the state of Florida. And so
That's
it's like I could, yeah, I'm gonna go to on the other side of the state for the weekend. Bring all
yeah,
and I have brought all my stuff, store people in anywhere I want, as long as they're usually within the state of Florida. But if they weren't, we as long as we get their permission and they say they're okay with it, which they always say they are, then we
yeah.
can keep working. Like what it could be like a morning coffee, doing a quick deposition or a hearing, and then be on the beach the rest of the
Yes.
day.
Yes, I love that so much for sure. It's like you've got your all day depositions where you're just going to be chucking, you're on fire, you're putting out 300 pages. And then it's like next day you have a personal injury. Like you said, it's like, okay, let me
Yeah.
just do this for an hour, and then I will just get back to my life. Yeah, it's great. It's really, really great. And that's
Yeah.
what I tell people that ask me about my job. What about you guys? I usually ask all of my guests what they would tell, their just younger people, younger generations about the court reporting. Do you guys have any tidbits or have you come across this where you've had to tell people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well,
All right.
we've told a couple of people like over the years. We've always
Okay.
talked to people. I've had people, check it out. My best friend's daughter, who's now not so young anymore. I mean, she's young, but she's like 20 or something. She actually sat in with me, shadowed with me. She was very interested in doing stenography, court reporting, and I would have loved for her to do it, but and she said she's still thinking about it, but she wanted to explore something else instead. So we always talk about it, but I'm like, you know what? I go for me when I left the courthouse as an employee, I said I actually did that, especially that first year. I didn't care if I made the same amount of money as I did at the courthouse. I just wanted a better quality of life. I was tired of feeling like I was running a rat race all the time. And
Yeah.
so I said this to this young 20-year-old, and I'm like, right now you're young, so you don't care. I go, but think about it at some point, I don't know, when you could be 27, you could be 37. What if you get married and if you want to have kids, and this is a job that you can do this. This is a career that you can do this. You can still manage it, maybe a little bit more as your kids are school age versus when they're relying on you more as infants or whatever. And she was so excited about that part of the profession. And she's like, "Oh, I definitely know I'm going to get married and have kids someday." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's something to think about. Like, the fact that you're 20 years old. If you did court reporting school now, you'd have this great because that's what we did. Richard and I were, 18 years old or whatever when we went into court reporting school. So I'm like, so you could have your whole life planned out in such a great way, and it's such a great career. So she was very excited about it, but unfortunately, I couldn't quite sell her on it. But ultimately, it's her decision. But we did
Yeah.
get quite a few people to do like the Project Stenos and the A to Z programs. We had
Awesome.
I'm trying to think how many people. I mean, I say a lot of people, maybe 7 or 8 people that we got to join the program.
Great.
So I'm not sure how much further they went after that, but um, I know it's a great career. So
It really is.
So the advice I would give to people, reporters, and even the people that are on different methodologies, like that I don't even know about yet. or haven't heard from them yet. But no matter what you're doing in life, learn as much about it as you can and do as much aspects of it as you can. So for us stenographers, like my world really opened up when I became an official, then left, then felt the confidence to not be an official because I was a real-time writer by then, and I started doing cart work. Embrace all of those things that put you a step ahead of everybody else. Because when you feel like you could be, then you're here talking to you. You have, you feel you have all the confidence that you have in all your years of not doing the same thing every day, but you did everything different. You tried everything out. Go
Right.
do cart. Every time somebody says they can't do cart, yes, you can. That deaf person that's relying on you, you are going to be their superhero that day.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you don't know until you get out there and do it. So embrace all aspects of the profession. And then when you get to be a really good writer, then you can hire all the scopists and proofreaders you want. You don't have to worry about coming over those transcripts and how many times.
Yes.
There's so many scopists, I love it. I don't have to go over the transcripts that many times.
Yes, I know. Praise, bless the Scopus. Absolutely. It has been such an absolute joy chatting with you, gentlemen. Honestly, we could go all day. I'm
I know
very, yeah,
I
we
know
still.
we'll talk your ear off if you don't pull the plug.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person at the summit. And yeah, we have so much to learn and so much to share moving forward. So yeah, thank you so, so much for your time. And not just here, but like I said earlier, in the profession, it's amazing that you've been in it for so long. You've seen so many things change. I feel like I still have so many questions for you, but maybe we'll have to do a part 2 or something, because like we said, we get carried away.
I think people are going to get tired of hearing from us at some point.
Well, I am not one of those people, but with that, we will let you go until next time. So thank you to everybody for joining us, and thank you to the Charade Brothers, and we will see you all next time.
Okay, thank you.